Hey, this is Owen. If you're comfortable, leave your first name and state at the sound of the tiny truck backing up.
Hi, this is Nikki from California. I don't know if you've done a video about this or not. I haven't stumbled across it, but maybe explaining to people the difference between communism, socialism, and the similarities and differences, because I keep running into people basically throwing those two words in as the same thing and a nasty thing. And thank you. I like your show a lot. Have a lovely day.
I looked into this a little bit because I was curious what the difference really is. I hear communism and socialism thrown around constantly as terms, and it drives me absolutely batty. Let me describe to you what I've come to understand as socialism. It's a little bit of an amorphous term, like people can apply different things to it depending on how they view it, and it's had different definitions throughout history depending on who was implementing it. Again, I'm not a political scientist, so take it with a grain of salt. Let me give you an idea of a socialist system. I was creating a business license, right? I was working with somebody to make a business license for a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And the way that 501c3 nonprofit organizations are structured is that when you create one, you aren't automatically in control of that organization. It isn't your organization. Like, I created my company that runs my YouTube channel and whatever else. I own that. I own the shares that, if it ever went public, I would have full ownership of the shares. I have the option to sell shares of it. Any money that it generates, it all goes to me in my pocket, right? That's how a normal company works. But with a 501c3 company, it doesn't work that way. It's its own entity, effectively. You create this company and you assign board members to it. When the company is created, you have to list board members in it. And those board members vote on everything from who's going to be the president and the vice president to how much people are paid to just absolutely everything. They even vote on which board members get to remain and which are kicked out, essentially, or fired. So if I created a nonprofit and I got 4 of my friends to go in with me and be the board members with me, which, by the way, is necessary. You have to define board members when you create a 501c3. Those 4 friends of mine could evict me from it. They could vote me off the board and take full and complete control of the company themselves. And though I started the company, I would no longer have a role in it, and I wouldn't have any kind of assets tied up in it. Nothing about it is mine. That is kind of how socialism works, except on a wider scale. So it's like every company that exists in a socialist economy is owned by the members of that company. So everybody that works in this company, like say YouTube, for example, everybody that works at YouTube has a controlling share. They can vote on who their managers are and who the board members are and everything else. And they have unions basically baked right into the structure of the company. It's an interesting idea. It's different from what we have now. I don't know that it's better or worse necessarily, but I feel like in some cases socialism has almost become an ideology in some countries rather than just an economic system, and that's caused problems. I wouldn't be opposed to trying it out in some situations, but I think rather than socialist, I would call myself a social democrat, where as a country, I want social programs to exist to make sure that the people that are on the bottom of the economy are taken care of, because I have the idea that We are only as strong as our weakest link, and I want to make sure that everybody is taken care of, because if everyone's taken care of and everybody has food to eat and a place to live, we will be stronger as a country. That's my take on it. I don't want the government necessarily to provide by default. I mean, I haven't really thought about it, like universal basic income. I'd have to think more about that. But I want a strong social safety net. If somebody needs it, needs the help, it should be there. They should be able to survive and not have to dig through trash cans for food, like I saw happening earlier. Now, as far as communism goes, I haven't read the literature on this. Again, I'm not a political scientist, so you'll have to fact check me on this one. But I believe communism is where the state owns all of the private companies. They're all owned and controlled by the government. Not the workers, but the government specifically. There are varying degrees of communism, I guess you could say. And depending on how deep into it or how extreme you want it to be, the government can control everything from the jobs that people do to the place that they live. In some more relaxed communist ideas or ideals, people have a choice of where to work and what to do and things like that, but the government does still own and control and make decisions for those companies. That's my understanding of it, and the difference between the two. If you have any criticisms of that in the comments, please feel free to hit me up with that, because I very well could be wrong. I've just done a good bit of research on it, and that's my take. Hopefully that answered the question for you.
Hey, Owen, this is Chandler from Texas again. Now I was just kind of curious on what your opinion of deism was. That's D-E-I-S-M. Like deism, not like theism. Yeah, anyways, and I also want to say I want to congratulate you and Rose on your marriage, and I hope that y'all will be happy together. Y'all seem like a really happy couple. All right, love you, brother. Peace out.
Appreciate that. My opinion on deism is basically, it seems like the only logically defensible position. Either we were created by a god, and that's about as far as you can go, or we weren't created by a god. All of these extra claims surrounding it, like, for example, Christianity claims all kinds of shit, like Jesus was God's son, and he was also God himself, and he could raise people from the dead, and just build up this whole gigantic story, leaving out Noah's flood and Adam and Eve. Like, they build all these ideas and stories into this ideology, into this belief system that you have to accept, or you can't be a member of the belief system, right? When it all boils down to it, there is one simple question you have to ask. Do you believe that there is a God? If your answer is yes, you would be a deist. If your answer is no, I don't believe it, that's not an affirmative claim that you believe that there isn't one necessarily. It's just saying you don't know. Then you would be an atheist, basically. Atheistic, like non-theistic. That's what it means. So deism seems like the only logically defensible position, and just barely. Christianity and Islam and all of these other religions that believe in a God, believe that God exists, they build these ridiculous stories on top of it, and it just gets crazier and crazier as time goes on.
Howdy, Owen. My name's Jordan. I am a Satanist living out in Tennessee, and I've got a hypothetical question for you. My question is, with all of these dominionists and evangelicals that have proclaimed that Donald Trump is the president as chosen by God, but the election, of course, being stolen by Joe Biden, does that mean that, do you possibly think that in their eyes they could think that Joe Biden is more powerful than God, since Joe Biden was able to undo the machinations of God? That's just a thought I had rattling around in my head. Please let me know what you think if you've got any opinions on that. Love your show. Appreciate your time. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thanks for the voicemail. The answer to the question is, in fact, yes, they do think that. They seem to believe that Joe Biden is more powerful than God. I mean, Robin Bullock and Hank Kunneman and a bunch of other people have specifically said that Joe Biden has set his aim on reversing the prophecy and preventing God's will from being done. Now, the logical conclusion from that is God is less powerful than Joe Biden, right? I mean, I don't know how else to read this. It's bizarre that they're going around making these claims with a straight face. All of their ideas are conflicting with each other. But we've been saying for years that the Bible is filled with errors and contradictions. Like the foundation of their belief system is filled with errors and contradictions. And somehow they manage to sidestep all of that and ignore it and pretend it's not there. What's one more contradiction in the bucket?